It's another episode of the Restaurant. Today we've got Dave Freetage from Grove City Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu joining us. A little bit that I know about Dave before we kind of get into our conversation is that Dave has been a police officer, I believe, for over like 20 years or something like that. He's been training martial arts basically his whole life. I know he's done kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. A ton of fighters come out of his gym. And on top of like being a 100% total badass, he's also like one of the sweetest guys I know in all of jiu-jitsu. And I think maybe I've just been lucky enough to catch him on good days because yeah, I don't want to catch him on a bad day. But I've known Dave for probably the better part of, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, something like that. And since I was a blue belt, that was probably about the first time I met Dave, and the whole time I've been on my jiu-jitsu journey. Dave's always been not only warm and welcoming anytime that he had stuff going on in his gym, but where I visited, but also just like he's a wealth of knowledge and willing to share, and so just the kind of people that I like to have around and be friends. And so that's Dave Freetage to me.
It's kind of a good introduction. Let me ask you this, Dave. So is Grove City your gym solely, or do you run that with some other people, or how does that work?
You know, it's been 10 years ago now. I used to work for someone else. They had a gym and I taught there. And it's tough to work for someone else when you can't do the things that you want to do. Environment is so important in the gyms. And we had people that were showing up, and it was starting to get more popular, and people were a cancer. And yeah. I like to get rid of those right away. And the owner didn't want to for financial purposes, which I understand. So I started my own place. So this is actually mine. I'm the sole owner. However, I have a staff of about 8 people that help me out a lot. One of my black belts is Tim Davis, and he's there all the time with me. And we all left. 12 of us left the earlier gym together. And of the 12 people that left, I think about 10 of them are still with me from a decade ago.
So I don't even know if you know or not, but is that the Tim Davis that I know that we were at? Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, super good guy. And we, for people that don't know, he and I helped run one of the ADCCs at the Arnold Classic in Columbus. And that's how I got involved in the ADCC afterwards. And super good guy, but he also is a police officer as well, isn't he? Is
yeah, right? We actually went to the academy together.
Really?
So we were academy classmates, and I've been training pretty much full time since 1994, and we started the police academy in 2002. So in the academy, we got to be buddies, and he started training with me then.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean,
yeah.
But you're right. Not to gloss over what you said before, but I think all of us have kind of been through this in some degree, right? But it is hard to run a business, a gym, whatever you want to call it, with multiple people, right? It's rough. Yeah. Because I think everybody has their own vision of how things could work. And if it's not, like, if you guys aren't getting together, and I think that's the main thing, like jiu-jitsu is like one of those things where it starts off with, at least with me, a bunch of guys rolling. And then eventually you kind of outgrow a space and you're like, hey man, we should probably start a gym. So we can get more people to roll with, right? And then you kind of don't really think about the business part. So you get it going. Then all of a sudden that stuff creeps in, meaning like, okay, how are we going to pay this? And then there's decisions, like you said, there's people that you're like, man, I don't really like these people. And then somebody else is like, yeah, but we kind of need the money. And, and you're like, well, yeah, but they're going to run off people. And, it's like, and then if you're just not on the same wavelength, it ruins a lot of friendships, and it's very tough. And so that's my advice to like a lot of people in gyms. Try not to do it with a buddy. You can have a buddy involved, right? And listen, I'm sure there's there is absolutely 100%. I know a bunch of places that run like that, but ultimately what I see is those friendships stop because business is business, right? And it gets in the way. And then all of a sudden now your jiu-jitsu friend's not even your real life friend. And then maybe he opens a gym down the road, and now you guys are rivals, and now you hate each other. And I've been through it all, and I've seen it all, and it's unfortunate. Yeah. The older I got, I look back at a lot of things that happened when I was younger that could have been solved with some simple communication. But
absolutely,
when we're young, plus we're all like technically fighters, even if it's just jiu-jitsu, like we're not the smartest people in the world, and we're hard-headed, right? it's a recipe for disaster. So my advice would be like, let somebody run it. Even if you all come together, just say, hey man, you're going to make all the decisions. I'm here to help if you need it. And maybe it would run better that way. Right. That's kind of where it's happening. I mean, I've seen it with everybody, but I'm glad that you're where you are now. And yeah, because I think even when I met Tim, he was at a different gym. Is that correct? Or maybe?
Well, back. I'm trying to think what year was that with ADCC and Carlos? We'd already started our gym by that time.
Yeah.
We started in 2012. I mean, so ADCC I think was right around 13, maybe. Is that right, or was it right before then?
It sounds right. Yeah. And
yeah. I mean, it was early on when I started. So yeah, it sounds right.
Because when you guys were doing the ADCC professional event on that side, I was running the amateur side for the actual Arnold tournament, and that was just a mess. That Arnold thing can be a nightmare sometimes.
I think it's generally always a nightmare, and it's not because of the Arnold. It's just because there's so many people, right? And it's hard to organize that. And we talked about it on like another podcast. Is one of the ways they kind of helped is they stopped. I don't know what they're doing now, but at least they did. They kind of stopped day of registration. Yeah, because that's what would happen. Is like it didn't matter who's running it. You know, like 1,000 people show up the day of the tournament, so then they have to you don't want to lose that 1,000 people, so that now you're running behind and you can't get anything started. And
the last few years they've actually separated all the other martial arts away, put them in a different building somewhere else, and that's helped because jiu-jitsu has its own place now. So
yeah, that's ingenious. Yeah, because it's busy, but you know, again, lucky to you guys, man. You have all that stuff in the state of Ohio and close to you. Arnold Classic's been going strong for all these years, which is amazing. So I'm sure it's awesome having a gym down there where you have a ton of stuff to do, you know?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Well, Gary, so here's what I'm thinking too. Like, well, actually, let me say this one thing, because I wanted to kind of start off with this, but I didn't get to. I forgot, but kind of start in the middle. But one quick thing before we get into this is I did want to mention that I don't know if everybody saw this or not, but my good friend Stefan Bonner, like he lost his house in a fire.
I was just gonna ask you about that, and if you got while you were in Vegas, if you got to see him, or I didn't know, but
yeah, so it was yeah, and so first of all, I want to say, you know, for anybody that can help, that would be huge. But Stefan's not one of those people that's been taken care of by anybody after his fighting career. And if it wasn't for him and Forrest Griffin, you know, the UFC arguably maybe not be as popular as it was, and MMA in general, right? He's one of the pioneers, a Hall of Famer, legend. However, he's not reaping any of the rewards of all that, right? And I don't want to get into all that stuff, you know, but he's my friend, and he's a friend of the gym. He's a really good guy, and he's just having a hard time, man. He lost everything in that fire. So everything, like literally everything. And he couldn't get it down. And so they, you know, he has a wife and a son, and you know, it's hard. I'm sure insurance will help with the house, but it doesn't replace the things that you lost. You know, I know from going through a flood, insurance doesn't really help you with stuff, especially you don't really have, so like, there's all kinds of different kind of insurances, right? Like maybe a fire or flood insurance to take care of your house, and that's a big deal. But you lose everything on the inside of your house, which could be 50 grand worth of stuff, right? And nothing helps that stuff. And of course, memories, which nothing's going to help that stuff. And he did. That was one of the things that he told me that he was most sad about, is that he lost, you know, his fights when he was in Golden Gloves in Chicago, and they were all on VHS tapes. And you know, Carlson Gracie was his instructor, and he was the guy that was supposed to take over when he came, you know, when Carlson got in a fight with Mario Sperry and all those guys. You know, Stefan was the next in line to take over. So anyway, Stefan had a lot of his old fights, things that you really can't replace. You know, Carlson gave him all these great things. He lost everything. And there's a couple of videos floating around. I saw one last night where I think Diego Sanchez posted, where Stefan was able to kind of get in his house and save some gloves from the Force fight, and maybe a couple uniforms from the Ultimate Fighter. But that was like literally it. And arguably, they're, you know, there's probably worth something to him, but they were covered in, you know, wet water and fire, and you know, they're not resale value. Not that he's going to resell them. I mean, I'm sure he's glad to have the memories, but anyway, it's a terrible time, and he's a proud man like we all are, and he's not going to ask for any help. But if there's anybody out there, I just wanted to bring that up, is that, you know, they do have a GoFundMe. Somebody set it up. He did not set it up. I'm sure it's quite embarrassing for a person to do something like that. And somebody set it up for his family, really set up for his wife, Andrea. So if you search, you know, fire Stefan Bonner, fire Andrea Bonner, or any of that kind of stuff, a lot of articles will pop up. So somebody can maybe donate. You know, it breaks my heart because, you know, he's kind of out of the spotlight now, so it's a little bit harder to get help, you know. So
Right.
there's just guys that's trying to spread the word. And anyway, you know, sorry to bring a downer, but I wanted to kind of start that off right, and tell people please help if they can. But Gary, you can get us back on track. Sorry about that.
Well, absolutely. I was gonna say, you know, I think we've all had experiences in and around jujitsu, or people that we train with, where there's a hardship. You know, we've all lost people who did jujitsu, or you know, they have an accident or something. And so I think we've all been on the side of trying to help out our brothers. You know, it's one of those things where we train. You know, when I was competing, I was training 5 days a week and sometimes 2 times a day, and you become family. Those guys are, you know, they're your brothers, they're your sisters that you're training with every day. And so when something happens to them, you hope that we can take care of, you know. And that's just, you know, fighting breeds friendship for some reason, you know. When anytime you do something hard, and I think Dave, you know, obviously being on the police force, and I kind of want to lead into that, is like, Dave, being on the police force, I know, do you do training with the police officers as far as tactical training? And that was something that I wanted to get into, is how important is jujitsu as far as translating into police work?
So funny question. Yeah, honestly, I do a lot. I just now, as of Friday, accepted a permanent position to be a recruit trainer at the police academy. So I'll be training recruits full time now. When I went through the police academy in 2002, no one else trained. We have about 2,000 people in our division. I was a blue belt and in 2002, and no one else had trained. Then Tim Davis went to the academy with me. He started training then, and basically the two of us started bringing the training to Columbus. In 2005, so I've been on for 3 years by that time, we have a unit called the Defensive Tactics Unit. And that sergeant came to me and said, "Hey, I remember you in the academy. You know, you were beating the crap out of everybody, including our instructors." I'm a tiny dude too. I mean, I weigh like $165. And so he's like, "Hey, can you come in and show us some stuff?" And that was in 2005. So I was still a brand new police officer, really. And I went to the academy and I started teaching then. About 2 to 3 months a year, we have what's called in-service training. And so we bring everybody out for a day of training, like 1 day a year is all we get, but it's for 8 hours. And I started teaching then back in 2005. So I would come off the street for about 3 months a year, and I teach in service from that point up till just this past year, basically. I started teaching recruits every Friday morning back in 2008. So on Friday mornings, I teach defensive tactics to recruits, but I still work the street. That was all like overtime stuff for me. But now, yeah, it's all seniority kind of based in the snap. But I've been on for about 20 years. I just now accepted the position in the academy to teach recruits full time. So obviously defensive tactics is one of my passions with that. You know, I work the boxing program and the ground program. So pretty excited to have the new spot, of course. But the good thing I see about all this is over the years, the amount of police now that train is dramatically higher. I mean, insanely higher. For example, when I'm teaching those classes, the in-service classes, every single night I would teach, at least 1 or 2 people in the class I had rolled with or trained, you know, at my gym. So that's how it changed from me being like the one person that did jujitsu all the way to now it's like there's probably a couple hundred on our department alone that do jujitsu. So
Do you think
massively important.
Do you think that's common everywhere, or do you think that's unique to Columbus? Because there's a lot of gyms, and martial arts is pretty prevalent in Columbus and Ohio. And so what do you think? I mean, do you think you're in a bubble, or?
Yeah, I would like to think that we kind of help that along. Some police are leery to go into places where, you know, not knowing if they're welcome or not as a police officer. So a little leery to go into places and train. And we've always, of course, welcomed that. So I think that helped. But now all the gyms around, like I mentioned Robin Giesler earlier, but Robin has some officers at his gym. I know Dustin Ware on the east side, he has officers at his gym. Of course, Ronan in the middle of our city, they have a ton of officers too. So we all have officers now. Dan Siegel up in Dublin has some. So now it's like we all have like our own section of the city, because Columbus it's big and it's spread out. And we all kind of are different parts of the city, but everybody now has officers that train. So it's more of a welcoming environment, I think. Back in the day, like when we started way back when, it was it's almost just like tough man competitions all the time, right?
Yeah.
And it's more of a science now. The weight cutting is a science, the way we teach jiu-jitsu is a science. Everything's a science for us. And I think that helps.
I was gonna say, I think jiu-jitsu, there's been a light shined upon it as far as like grappling for police officers and how important it is to know how to handle yourself when somebody gets their hands on you.
Sure.
I know that there's like an adopt a cop program for jiu-jitsu gyms that the gym that I'm at now, because I've moved to North Carolina, the gym that I'm at now, we have 3 or 4 cops to come in, and if they don't pay anything, it's free of charge for them to come and train with us. We have to do a little bit of stuff, I think paperwork or whatever, to make sure that they're in the spur. I'm not exactly sure how. I don't actually run the gym that I'm at. I just help teach. So I'm not exactly sure as far as the business side of it, but they've made it available for those guys to train and not be a cost to them. And all we want is better prepared cops will be better cops.
Absolutely.
And I can't see it being any other way. Obviously, better than I do. But if somebody if you train regularly on what to do when somebody grabs you, or how to go to the ground, you can only be more prepared for that situation.
Absolutely. There's a lot to that. It's not only the physical confidence, knowing that you can handle yourself physically, less likely to maybe go to an intermediate weapon or even deadly force, but it's also the fact it's like a stress inoculation. You're in this, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, like Hickson used to say. So you get to comfortable being uncomfortable, and as a cop, there's a lot of situations that are uncomfortable. But if you're used to dealing with that and training it every single day in the gym, my body's always contorted. I'm always uncomfortable. I'm always getting beat up by these young guys, And so if you train yourself to do that, it's like there's that calmness that you get kind of under fire, under pressure. So that the physical side of it is one, but the mental side of it is even bigger, in my opinion.
What it is, and I've heard a lot of talk about this. I'm glad you kind of said that, is it's going to be tough to say, because how long were you officer before you did jiu-jitsu? I know you answered this, but or said it, but now you're already kind of stuff.
Yeah, I came into jiu-jitsu. I'd already been training Muay Thai and jiu-jitsu for about 8 years before I was an officer.
Yeah, I'd almost wish there was like a before and after, you know what I mean? And I'm sure there's some kind of example of that, but because I'm wondering, like somebody like you and Jocko and some other guys have talked about this, like, and you just mentioned it too. When you're dealing with that uncomfortability, chaos, everything that happens when a fight kind of starts to break out, or a weird situation where you get this adrenaline dump, it's fight or flight, right? If you don't have training, it's kind of like what you just said, like you're more apt to go towards some kind of weapon, I'm sure, or it's just so frantic. You don't even know what you're doing. Like, I don't want to compare anything to any situation because I don't have all the facts, but let's just kind of, even though I said that I'm going to but let's say about the lady that thought she pulled her stun gun out and really pulled her gun out. I don't really have the facts of that case, but let's say that on paper, I believe what she said, it's not unreasonable, right? When you're kind of freaked out and you just reach for something and it's a blur, because like it's a meme and we all make fun of it, but how many times like do people say, I can't do jiu-jitsu because I just see red and you guys wouldn't be able to handle me, or whatever. We make fun of that stuff, right? But that essentially is what we're saying happened to her, right? We could say she blanked out, and that is a real thing, right? But it's not necessarily a good thing. Like when people say that to us that train, we say, okay, well, go ahead and do that and see how it works out for you. because nothing's going to change. You're just going to be crazy in a spaz like all the other white belts and all the other new people. And we deal with that all the time. It's not a big deal. But that being said, if you're in a situation where you could harm somebody by pulling a gun or doing something, it's very possible, right? So I think mentally, and that's what you drove home, and I think that's the most important thing, is the training. If you do that day in and day out, hopefully it calms you down and you can make rational decisions during that time of crisis, right? You know, and that's one of the things I notice about police officers. I don't know what you feel on inside, but there's a presence of good ones, right? Where they've got control of the situation. And again, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, at least on the outside, it looks like this guy's got, like, I trust him. I know what he's saying. He's like, hey, you over here, you know, he's got control. Like, maybe on the inside, they're freaking out, right? But you've had the opportunity to kind of, and then people, like, that's the thing, like, I'm going to follow you. If I trust that you're just not freaking out, like, it also, there's and again, I'm not a bad guy either, but I think, like, if I was a bad guy and I'm wrestling around with somebody and I feel like they don't know what they're doing, like, I'm going to keep going.
Sure.
If I'm a bad guy and a guy's calm, collected, tell me what to do, I'm going to be like, oh, I might be in some trouble. Maybe I should start listening, because backup's coming too. Like, it's only going to get worse. Right.
Right.
And I think that's, you know, and is that like part of how much mental do you guys talk about now? Or hell, you may be changing the course, right? But how much mental do you guys talk about in that situation, about how you stay calm? And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with training. Like, if you're more confident, like when I walk down the street, right? Like, there's another thing we've talked about in self-defense, right? Is how you carry yourself, right? If you got your head down and you look nervous and you look like a target, you're going to be a target.
Sure.
But acknowledge, if you see like a group of people and they're bad news, and you kind of acknowledge you're there and you kind of got your head up and you're with it, you're a little less likely to get attacked, right? It's kind of, there's some stuff going on there. So how much do that stuff do you guys talk about, or how much will you talk about now that you're taking it over?
You know, it's something that's hit constantly. A lot of we do, of course, there's classroom training, there's the physical training, but the academy here it's 7 months long. So one class of 70 to 80 recruits, it's 7 months long. And then they go through another 15 weeks of coaching after that. So they spend almost a whole year pretty immersed in training, but a lot of that is scenario based also. So not only classroom and, you know, in the mat room and boxing ring, but we do scenario based training. And in our scenario based training, it's the constant mental aspect of, you know, get your command presence right, stay calm, you know, focus on this, legally going through everything. So it's like legally, tactically, you're going through all this stuff. So yeah, it's something that it's hit every single day for those guys. Every single day we hit it. And, you know, some get it and some don't. It just is what it is. And I'm with you. The ones who have a background now in training, whether even as you consider like high school and college wrestlers and football players, that sort of stuff helps too. Military guys, everything that they've had that sort of like mental focus before. The ones that have the struggle more are some of the younger ones who are 21 years old, you know, turning 21 years old in the academy, because you can be 21 and they're that young, maybe just high school, fresh out of college, or worked a couple jobs or joining in, and not had to have that athletic focus before, or then any type of military training or anything. And they can struggle sometimes with that mindset for sure. We've seen that. So, but that's, I think our scenario-based training does, it pushes people along and it helps.
How would you turn those around? I'm sorry, Gary, but just to follow up on that, like if I was 21 and I came in and you saw me struggling, how would you fix me?
Yeah, we do a lot with that. I mean, we have a lot of remedial sessions where an hour before work, an hour after work, we bring them in. We'll work with them on anything they're struggling with. So be it, you know, boxing, ground, prisoner control, or even scenario-based training. If they're having troubles with, you know, maybe their building searches or they suck, or they're just kind of scared. I mean, being scared is a real human emotion, especially in policing. And as a veteran officer who worked in a bad neighborhood, you know, you're kind of like, man, this stuff in here, it's sterile. It's a sterile environment. Nobody's going to hurt you. But the emotions they go through are real. They really get scared on some of these scenarios, and they get nervous. And it's again, it goes back to that training of stress inoculation and kind of putting them through it over and over again. before they get on the street. So if one person does struggle, we basically take them aside and do extra training with them and on those the scenario-based trainings.
Well, and I was going to say, it's funny because I think it really is. It kind of comes down to pressure. Like, what's and obviously I'm not a cop. I don't know what you guys go through it. I don't know how I would react in a situation if I'm on a call and it's a stressful situation. I know what I've put myself through in jiu-jitsu, and I know what it's like to have a 245-pound black belt in top side control on me, and I know how I react to that now, and it's a little better than what it was when I was a white belt. But for me, it seems as though it really is. It's like, and it's cliche, right? But like, to make a diamond, it takes pressure, right? and I it seems that of the cops who are confident, the cops that I've met that are secure in situations, that they've gone through some sort of pressure, like you were saying. They've been through either training in wrestling, football, they're athletes, they went to the military, and those experiences kind of hardened them a little bit. They were ready to go into that. And there's something, it kind of scares me for what's coming, but like there is this idea that we need to kind of like soften things. And I think we actually need to maybe make things a little more difficult sometimes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, you had the defund the police push last summer or 2 summers ago now, and all the talk about police reform, and some of it it wasn't a bad thing. I mean, some of the police reform wasn't a bad thing at all. The way things were done in the 70s and 80s and even the 90s, probably some of it had to change, and it did change. Some of the de-escalation stuff they were doing before wasn't really systemized properly. So even though you would do scenario-based training, you had de-escalation built into it, it wasn't really systemized. Like now it's kind of systemized. There's trainings and classes you go to. I teach some of the classes for de-escalation and talking to people with, you know, whether it be in mental crisis or special needs and things like that. So there are de-escalation courses that we actually have now. Before it was maybe a buzzword that was said now and then, but there weren't classes for it. So some of the changes did have to happen. I agree. However, the one thing that you just said about how it seems like it's gotten softer, I agree. And it's one of those jobs. It's just not everybody can do it, and not everybody should do it. You know, and the whole push for everybody's equal, we're all the same, it's all good, and that's good and fine. But honestly, it's a job that it's just not for everyone. Yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, people legit have emotions, and people get scared, and they're frightened to do this and scared to do that, and you don't want those people on the street. So to like push them out of the academy when you're seeing that difficulty with them, it's hard. It's hard from our end, where maybe the difference is now is maybe 20, 30 years ago, you could just snap your fingers and fire those people in the academy as a recruit. And now, you know, we really can't do that. You have to work with them. And that puts out a softer product sometimes. Like I said, some of the notion of it being a softer product, some of it isn't necessarily bad. I mean, there are a lot of cases of the police brutalities that have happened, you know, and legit ones we see on camera. You're like, what the hell is that guy thinking? I don't know, you know. For example, the George Floyd case, when that happened, I saw it that the evening they put it out, and I got on Facebook the next day and made this big, huge post about it, and basically said, the officer will go to prison for murder. This is my wheelhouse. I'm an expert in policing, I would say. I'm an expert in, you know, ground, I would say, and he's going to go to prison for murder. And some of my coworkers was like, man, you're a traitor, blah, blah. And I'm like, buddy, that's murder. You know, there's nothing, 9 minutes on a neck. I've had a knee on my neck before in training. It hurts, and you're going to go to sleep eventually, you know? So you gotta call it the way it is. And I think the transparency is different now than what it used to be in policing. And that's probably a good thing. You know, the body cams are okay. I was totally against them at first. I'm like, oh my God, I don't be watched all the time. Lo and behold, in Columbus, at least, the body cams have exonerated more police complaints than what they found the officers guilty of what the complaint was. So it ended up being a good thing for police. So yeah, I don't know. Little diatribe there. Sorry.
No. I was going to say, actually, the body cams, I mean, it's going to prove the good cops are good cops. That's right. What it's going to prove. It's not going to It's not going to show that all cops are bad cops. It's going to show good cops are good cops. And these guys, and then the guys that are making mistakes, it's going to expose those mistakes.
Right.
Now, some of those mistakes are some things that are going to be egregious, right? And you know, either need to be legally ramified, or you know, maybe they need to be terminated as far as police officers. But good cops are going to be shown to be good cops.
Sure.
So,
agreed.
I mean, that's a lot, and it's a lot of work that you got. I'm sure things have probably changed quite a bit, right? Since then, what do you think the difference is now? I guess since we kind of talked about it, but pre George Floyd versus post George Floyd, how different is it now? And that's a broad question, so I guess we can answer it two ways. How different is it now with training, and how different is it now with people, just people in the community? Are they,
yeah,
I'm not trying to say weird, but you know, I mean, is everybody like now got a camera out being like, you can't tell me it's, because that's what I noticed on Instagram and Facebook is immediately after it was like tons of videos of, quite frankly, people being assholes to police and then wondering why they're having a hard time, right? Like, meaning that,
well, and you also had the
over.
cops that were attacking police officers in New York City that we were seeing too. I'm off camera. I'm sorry, guys. I can still hear you though.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying is, and it was like almost like a lot of people trying to show off, and I've saw a million videos, right? And that's just as annoying because there's an argument too for the people that are, you know, I guess there's an argument too, like where people they're for police, which is good, but I think they're also, sometimes these arguments are sometimes racist, to be honest with you. It's like, at least I'm in West Virginia, and sometimes what I hear is definitely got racist undertones, right? Because they're like, well, black people this, black people that, and it gets too weird, right? But I think, you know, I do think sometimes it is how you treat other people. It always goes to that, meaning that I get pulled over no matter what my race is. If I have a combative attitude, I'm going to get a combative attitude in return.
Sure.
And the situation is going to continue to escalate, especially if I don't, and you brought it up, you guys got de-escalation techniques, right? But that's what I noticed was a lot of people just saying like, well, hey, I've got my camera rolling. You can't tell me what to do. I'm not rolling down my window. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And it was just like, it was a mess. The whole thing was a mess, right? And I'm like, man, like this has only made things worse, because now we've got people like where they used to be like, okay, sir, what was I doing? I'm sorry. I apologize. Like blah, blah, blah. And then it go from there. It was already heated right when the person got to the window. So I guess that's my question would be, I mean, how is it now? It looks like it's probably calmed down a little bit, but I'd imagine that was crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, to answer both of those, first of all, from a training aspect, for us in Columbus, we didn't have to change a whole lot because we didn't allow chokes anyway, and that was a big change in policing, was that chokes pretty much went out the window nationwide. And some departments, if we trained some outside agencies, and about 40-50% actually were allowed to choke for self-defense purposes. We never were in Columbus. They considered it deadly force if you do. So you can do it in a life-threatening situation, and that's it. With that being said, since it was outside of our policy anyway, we didn't change our training barely at all. Very few, a couple positional things we changed as far as handcuffing went on the ground, but beyond that, we didn't change anything. So going to the other side of it on the street, yeah. I mean, you know, I came on in 2002, very close to September 11th, 2001, you know, about a year after that. And everybody loved the police at that time. You know, you were a first responder and you were looked at well. And that's when I started. And then, of course, going all the way through to in the summer of 2020, when we had the riots downtown here, I mean, the town was burning down, you know. And you saw a whole different aspect of, wow, this is different. And you could feel the raw emotion that from the crowd. And make no mistake, it wasn't a normal crowd. I'll never forget the rest of my life. I'll remember this. But I remember one night, the second night of the riot, standing on the little skirmish line we had set up, because we were still thinking it's like old school kind of riot situation. And in the very back, they started throwing glass bottles and stuff at us. and bricks. But in the very back, there was people in each corner, and they were waving a hammer and sickle Russian flag, the old CCP flag. And then in the middle of it was an anarchy flag. They started waving these flags, and things started trashing. And I'm like, what are we doing here? You know, this is the United States, and I'm seeing the old school, you know, Russian flag waving at us. So Soviet Union flag, I should say.
Yeah.
And that was a whole different aspect. And then after that, yeah, since then, I mean, you're right. Things have calmed down a little bit now, but there's still an undertone, attitudes towards police. Yeah, it's still a little rough. Not quite what it was back in the early 2000s.
It's rough. It's a thankless job, right? Like it's
sure.
It's mentioned on other podcasts all the time is that you can say all you want bad about police until you actually need them, right? When it's time to call them, somebody's robbing your house or attacking somebody, and now the situation's changed. And look, I get it. I think stuff typically comes from a good place, right? And then it just sometimes devolves into not a good place, right? And some of it is ignorance and not looking at it from both sides of the coin, right? Like empathy is a big thing. I know when I got older and I started looking at things that like, well, what's this other guy think, right? And then it kind of changed me, really, because that's the thing. Like a lot of times I would take everything just on a personal note as a fight. Like if you did something that I didn't like, I thought you were out to kill me or out to get me and you didn't like me. I never really looked at it like, well, that's not exactly what that guy was thinking. Like he just thought, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, wait a minute. If we look at it both point of views, maybe that's not what he thought. And I do think sometimes that what it goes to, it's so black and white with some people. It's just this or that. Right. And it's not, there's a lot going into things. Right. And I can't imagine, period. And I think in, you know, I guess expanding upon what I just said is people forget this. Like every time somebody comes up to a car, you literally could die. Like it's a little over dramatic, right? But how many times have I seen videos where somebody just pulled somebody over? It looks pretty benign, and then all of a sudden the guy pulls out a gun and starts shooting, right? I just watched a video the other day where a guy, I don't know why they were called, but somebody has come into, like, let's say a domestic violence call or something. He said, hey, she's choking to death. Just come on in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and then the guy pulled out a gun and started shooting a guy.
Yeah, it's nuts. Arizona, I think. But
yeah, I mean, so, you know, you think you're there to save somebody lures you in, all of a sudden you're just getting shot. Like, nobody understands that, you know, and that feeling probably, I would assume, again, I've never been through it, but like every call should probably be fight or flight. You probably have a little bit of adrenaline going through you every single time you pull somebody over, every time you do something, which again is why training makes that a little bit better, because we know how to deal with that, right? Like every time in jiu-jitsu or MMA or boxing or whatever, I look across, I know the guy wants to technically hurt me, right? Even we're talking jiu-jitsu in a submission. And I remember at the beginning when I first started jiu-jitsu, I had this little anxiety, you know, I was a little pumped up, right? And that's kind of went away now, but I still would get it. Like if somebody comes from another gym and they're in my gym and I'm like, well, I don't know this guy. Like, you know, he might crank an arm bar. He might crank this, you know, then you kind of start getting that a little bit again. That's got to be every single day. And I think people need to think about that. Like I have a good story. And it used to be, it was a guy actually at my gym, which was cool, roundabout, but I was driving just down the road and there's a little spot where they catch you. Cause let's say it's, you know, 45 speed zone, and then it goes to 25 immediately, like a weird little switch. So a lot of times cops will sit there at the thing. Right. So I was one of those people that got caught, and it's dark. And I was like, oh shit, that sucks. So then when I pulled over, you know, I'm not also like, I've done better since. That's probably 10 or 15 years ago, but you know, usually have my shit handy, like my registration, it's all over. I don't even know where it's at. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I just open up my glove box. I'm like searching through, and I kind of look in my side view mirror and I see the guy coming and his hand's on his gun. And I was like, oh shit. Like, and then it dawned, I'm like, well, yeah, like I'm searching through my stuff, right? Like he doesn't know what I'm doing either. So I was like, oh man, I'm sorry. And then just so happened to be a guy that trained at the gym, you know, and then he was like, it was like both of us had this feeling of just, you know, like, damn, that was good. You know, he put like my hand was on the window because I put my hands out. Like I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. And he put his hand on mine. He's like, thank God it was you. I didn't know what you were doing. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Is there any? It's like I didn't really think that one through. You know,
Right.
so, you know, it's kind of funny. But I learned from that too. You know, where somebody else could have did that, and then they're like, "Well, that guy came and he was going to kill me," and
Sure.
he didn't know what I was doing, right? Like,
Yeah.
luckily we could think through that. But that's anyway. Wow. So I don't envy you. This, I guess, is the point. Like, and here's the thing. I think Gary probably echoed this. Like, we do admire you guys. We know that you have a hard job, right? And it's probably now sometimes a thankless job. There's plenty of people that do thank you, but you, like said, in 2001, firemen, police were heroes.
Right.
It was a badge of honor. I remember you could buy, I went to New York around that time and they were selling hats and t-shirts left and right, FDNY and, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, but you can say the same thing about America, right? How many American flags we see on every single house back then? And now it's like people argue left and right. They hope we have a civil war so they can fight a Democrat or Republican. Like, things don't make sense half the time, right? We live in a crazy world, you know, but, you know, congrats to you for doing all that stuff, man.
Yeah, well, that kind of actually leads into my next question for Dave, is like, without going too deep into your curriculum or whatever, but what is the focus of your classes going to be for your trainees?
I mean, most of our stuff's already done. I mean, it's we're just going in. Like, I'm one of 8 staff members, so I think I'm trying to remember exactly. We have a 7-month academy, but almost like 4 months of that is state required stuff. Like, it's stuff the state of Ohio gives us. We have to give our recruits for 5 months of or something. Then the other like 2 months is our Columbus specific stuff. I mean, as far as like changing things, there won't be anything I'll actually change. Maybe put our own little twists on stuff. But I've been doing the defensive tactics stuff for recruits for so long that it's already getting to, you know, it's evolved over the years as I got more experience in jiu-jitsu and in policing. But everything's kind of there already, you know, so it's just going to be, every class will be a new class for us. Every 3 months, here comes a new class in, and, you know, our group gets a class for this 3 months. The other group gets another class of 3 months. And at the end of our 6 months, 7 months, the other class comes in, we're going to get them. And it's just going to be a cycle of people, because we've lost so many people through retirements in the last 2 or 3 years. I think we're down something like 400 officers right now, 300 officers. Wow. So short. So it's a massive. I mean, overtime is as much as you want to work, any day you want to work, as much as possible. We're that short right now. So we're trying to get as many officers in as we can. And Columbus pays well. It's a good job. But I think they still struggle getting people, you know, at this point. It's just maybe not the applications, the volume that we had 20 years ago for the job. So there's a whole bunch of aspects in there, you know, training wise, it's a little different. Before I was, like I said, I was on the street, and I would come in off the street and work part-time in the academy, still full-time on the street. Now it's gonna be a full-time academy job. So I'll feel a little more responsible for these guys than I did before, you know? So now they'll be like my kids.
Yeah. Well, how do you think you can get applications up? Is there a way, or do you think it's just the times we live in? Because I also hear, right, that nobody wants to work, right? That's a recurring theme. I was just in Las Vegas, and a lot of things were shutting down. You know, hell, my hotel, for example, we stayed at a place where kids could go, and they had to keep shutting down the water slides because there's no lifeguards. They're like, we can't get nobody to work, right? It actually is a thing. So it's not just police, it's everywhere, I guess. I don't really get it because I have a job, but no, I don't know what's going on. It's kind of funny because I kind of want to argue when people say nobody wants to work. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'll take as many jobs as you can give me, you know, but like, it really must be a thing, right? I mean,
that's true. I mean, I think we have a recruiting unit, and they do a fantastic job. They're beating the streets all the time, man. They're out at all these little events and colleges and everything you can think of. They're there every weekend doing work and passing out their flyers and emails and doing everything they can do. And I know COVID was an issue for us too, because all those special events like that were closed down for like the last year and a half. So getting the name out there wasn't as prevalent as before. But I don't know. I don't have a solution to get people to want to go into the profession of policing. I mean, I'm honest with them when they ask me about it. You know, I tell them it'll probably change you as a person, and it can be dangerous. It can be bad for your health if you don't take care of yourself. It can be bad for your mental health too. I mean, there's a lot that can go wrong. On the flip side of it, I've met some of the greatest people I'll ever meet, you know, and it also is an avenue that lets me train and work out more, which is good for me. So,
No doubt.
There's good and bad with it. It was a good excuse when I got married to be like, hey, I got to keep training jiu-jitsu because I'm a cop, you know, I got to keep training. Wife's like, okay, I guess you got to train.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe you can say, hey, if you got problems with your wife,
Yeah.
become a police officer. She can't say nothing.
Girlfriends will never take guys from jujitsu again.
Right. I think the divorce rate among cops is like 80% or something. Probably not a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a rough one, right? It's life and death. And yeah, you guys are gone a lot. I mean, that's the thing. When I keep saying a thankless job, that's everything. I mean, that's part of it, right? People don't understand what it's like, right? Getting called out, doing all this stuff nonstop. Like you said, working overtime is a way to make money, but it means you also have less time to do stuff, less time with your family.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part is like you said though earlier, it's that something as little as you see as a citizen would be, I just got pulled over by a cop. But like you said, you know, the cops, we've all dealt with traffic stops that went bad, that went wrong. But then you have the ones like yours where it's not a bad stop, but you got somebody rooting around like that. And obviously your heart rate starts to go, uh-oh, and you get that little adrenaline dump for a second. But if you do that 3, 4, 5 times a night, that takes a toll on you, you know? And so then you're ultra mega safe all the time, trying to, you know, be tactical all the time. And some people take that the wrong way, of course. And it is what it is, man.
Or the other thing could happen too, is that because it happens 3 or 4 or 5 times a night, it becomes a boy who cried wolf situation where like, oh, this is just another stop. He's just looking for he's just looking for his insurance or whatever it is. Yeah. And then an officer may be complacent when they come up to the car. Sure. You know, and so it could happen the other way, is like, it's just another traffic stop. And that's when it becomes a problem for the officers, that, hey, this isn't just another traffic stop. You need to treat every situation the same, with the same severity, but with also the same level-headedness. It's difficult. There's a lot of issues that can arise from the same experience every time.
Yeah, you know, to take it to a pretty extreme example, one of the shootings I was in, this guy, he got out of the car, out of the passenger side vehicle, and took off running. And he had a gun in his hand. Oops, sorry, hold on. Someone called me right now.
No worries.
I'll send it to voicemail. I didn't even know that was possible. You there?
We're here.
Okay,
you're fine.
I thought I had it on Do Not Disturb. I guess not. Somebody just called me. But yeah, to take it to an extreme example, we've had many people that jump out of cars and they run with a gun in their hand. Generally they run and they throw the gun. They toss the gun, and we either catch them in a foot chase or we don't. This guy got out of the car. He ran a few steps, gets behind a tree and starts firing. And it took a second for my brain to register. I'm like, oh shit, he's actually firing at me. And Gary, like you kind of said, you know, it's like the boy that cried wolf. I've seen somebody run out of a car so many times with a gun that it didn't even occur to me that he was going to turn around and shoot me, you know, or shoot at me, I should say. And it's one of those things like, oh shit, he's actually shooting now. And it took a second for my brain to go, you better do something here. Because it's like, this isn't a normal foot chase. He's not going to throw the gun and run, you know? So you're right. It can be the boy that cried wolf in that situation for your body. Cause you're just like, okay, another guy with a gun, big deal. Well, it is a big deal. But to me at that time, I wasn't even thinking that was going to happen. So yeah, it happens both ways for sure.
Can you, because I would assume Gary's got the same situation. Can you describe what it's like to be shot at, since I've never actually been shot at?
Yeah.
That's pretty weird, right?
Sure. You know, and I've had this question before. It's really hard to like put into words to people, but for guys like, and it comes up every time it comes up, it usually comes up to the gym. It's a group of guys, you know, we're like brothers and we're talking, and they'll say, hey man, what was that like? And you know, what I tell them is, you guys have been in a cage fight. Like, yeah. I was like, you know, you fight MMA, that cage shuts, you hear the door lock, it closes, it locks, and that referee says, ready, let's go, or get it on, or whatever. That split second before that little like, oh, here we go. It's like that times 100. Basically, it's like right before you engage in an MMA fight or any type of like, I don't use jiu-jitsu as the same way because I don't have that fear of getting hurt in jiu-jitsu. But like MMA or Muay Thai or something where you have that little bit of anxiety, pressure, fear all at once. It's like every emotion bottled up in just a split second. Yeah.
Interesting.
And then and it lasts too. It's like, You know, you get done with your MMA fight or whatever, you walk out of the cage, you calm down, you go out, have some beer and wings, go home, go to bed. You know, something like that happens, and it might be a couple of days before you can relax. So,
Really?
I mean,
yeah.
that's PTSD though, right?
Absolutely.
That's what
yes,
that is. And
for sure.
essentially I can't imagine trying to walk away from a situation where a gunfire has been fired at me, right? And like trying to come down from that, like that high.
Yeah.
And I think when we equate this to any of the highs or lows in our life, like the birth of my child, right?
Yes.
Like that's another one where it was like I was at a level for quite some time, right? My kid was born and I was at the highest high that I could be at for days. And
Right.
so I can't imagine the lowest lows being like, hey, somebody shot at me,
Sure.
and having to deal with that. It's the opposite end of the spectrum, but it is equally as emotionally hitting.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, it's in the neighborhood I worked, and it's a big city, man. You know, it's a big city here. There's a lot of bad parts to it. Great city. I love it, but there's a lot of bad parts to it too. And it happened more than once where I've been shot at, you know, and after a while, it's like the emotions change, where the first one's like fear, anxiety, but I still have that, I'm going to catch this guy. I'm going to get him. Later on, it's like, it turns into anger, where you're like, that son of a bitch shot at me and I'm going to get him, you know? So as down the road, as it happened again and again, those sort of things, it's like, then it just started pissing you off, and it almost like that competitive side in you comes out, you know? And it's again, you go back to jujitsu, we talked about earlier, the whole like calm under pressure thing. I never lost, like, I did get a little bit of tunnel vision on the first one, but I never like totally lost my sense of where I was or anything. The one thing I'll say is Columbus does a very good job of, like, they take you out of service pretty much. It happens like, okay, you're gone for 3 days, you know, go home, rest, talk to the attorneys, talk to police psychologists, do whatever. And I'll never forget that, like, I went back to work, and the first thing I did on my first night back after my first one was I drove to the scene, and I was like, okay, I got to see how far away it was. And in my head, I was like, it had to be like 45, 50 feet. That's what I was thinking. And man, it was like Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger hallway, right? We were outside. I started walking, it was 12 feet away. And in my head, I was thinking 45, 50 feet, you know? And so that's how your brain like messes everything up. You know, your perception of those events gets so screwy. And I was thinking he was way down the road, you know, way down this yard. And I was like, oh my gosh, he was like 12 feet away. Like, I had no idea. So it's just crazy, man. The tricks your mind plays on you. You're right, Gary. I mean, yeah, sure. It's PTSD for sure to a certain extent. Then you just go forward and deal with it. And I think martial arts side of it, jiu-jitsu, I think that helps a lot of us that have to go through that stuff. We have a project here at the gym. It's actually a project here in Central Ohio. It's called the Legion Project. And it's free for all veterans and first responders. And we host it Sundays at our gym, but there's other days throughout the week that they host it. And it's only for it's an open gym, and it's only for veterans and first responders. And they go in there and they BS a little bit, they roll, and then they usually go out to lunch and everything. So cool little event that happens, but it definitely helps people. And that's kind of the reoccurring theme, is a lot of the guys say, you know, been in Afghanistan 2 or 3 tours, or Iraq, and they get back and like, man, I look forward to this every week. This is it. So
that's a great idea, actually. I wonder, do you know who came up with that idea, or how?
I do. And I can put you in contact. One of the guys, he's actually in North Carolina now, Gary, but Corey Minton used to teach at my gym, and he's one of the ones that kind of spearheaded and runs it. So he's in North Carolina now.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome idea, because I get those messages all the time where we have some people in that they've been in Iraq or Afghanistan or just something, and they post articles and they talk about it all the time, where this is the thing, this is the only thing that really helps, right? Because I we have I had a friend, Rich. It was weird. I was invited one time to teach at Quantico, right, with the Marines, and so I taught some jiu-jitsu like during their little couple-week program. And anyway, I took some guys with me from my gym, and one of them, the reason I picked him, he was, I think, 60 or 70, somewhere in that age, but he had been in Vietnam, and he was a Marine, and he had like kind of a bad taste in his mouth, and he was struggling, right? And he was an alcoholic. He was recovered at that point. But anyway, he was like, this is going to be a big deal to me because I need to go and I need to resolve some things. And so we went down there, we did jujitsu. That was it, right? And it was a big deal for him. Like it really just the brotherhood, going there on good terms, not the war and not all that stuff. But one of the, like beyond all that, one of the things he said that really struck home with me, because I didn't really understand. I still don't understand because I've not been through war. But he's like, look, they want us to go to the VFW or a psychologist or something like that. He's like, I don't want to talk about that stuff. I want to forget it. Right. I don't want to sit there and I, and I never really thought about it because to me, that's what I hear. And I thought, well, you need, like in my mind, I'm like, well, you need to talk about this, how you get over issues. And then when he said that, I was like, that kind of makes sense, right? He's like, I don't ever want to, and he said, because he's like, I think about the people that I killed in Vietnam and what they would have been or what their family would have been or what their wife thought, like all these really terrible things I never really thought about. And it haunted him at night. Anyway, jiu-jitsu, for a lot of people that have those same thoughts, is the only time where you're just thinking about the person across from you.
Yes.
You have no choice, right? It's just, it's not even life or death, right? It's not that. It's just that you have a goal, they have a goal, and you're in the moment, you're enjoying yourself, right? Like, we can make it super dramatic, but it's not. Like we're wrestling around and we're having fun and we don't think about nothing else. And it was great for him. The sad part of this story was he ended up starting drinking again and he killed himself right later. But I guess the part of the story that's good even with that is that it helped me understand a little bit, right? Because like I can't, like those demons that he had, that they're bad, right? And if you don't, and also when all that happened, when he did kill himself, he wasn't at the gym, right? He broke away from the gym again, and those things that were helping him quit helping him. And then he probably went back to drinking and he had some issues. I think what happened was he had some issues, maybe a breakup with his wife or something. Anyway, sent him down a dark path and he ended up killing himself. But I guess, like what I'm thinking is that like we don't know. I don't know. Gary probably doesn't know like how important. I know what we started this podcast off before I think even we hit record, saying I needed to have this open mat because I've been in Vegas all weekend on vacation and drinking and I haven't worked out, and mentally I needed this. I feel better now. I just needed this, right? That's how those people probably feel, like you said, times 100. Yeah. Right? They have these demons every day and these things that bother them, and they need this. They just need to get it all out. They need to exert themselves physically, get those endorphins going. They need to forget about everything, and they need this every day, right? Again, I'll never understand it, but I know from being around people like yourself, like my friend Rich there, and a bunch of other guys that maybe this is like a cure for a lot of things, man. That's, like you said, like it helps with your police work, right? Like calms you down. There's a lot of things going on. It keeps you in that thing. Mentally, it kind of calms us all down. And a lot of people don't have this in their life. We're pretty lucky to have this. It doesn't have to be just jiu-jitsu. You do Muay Thai, you do MMA, or you did, and all of us do that. But the having that thing to kind of calm us down and put us back in reality and put us in check and keep us mentally focused, I guess is one way to put it, is a huge thing. We're lucky.
I was gonna say, it kind of leads me into there's two things it's gonna lead me into. One, my last job that I did, so I kill bugs now. I work for Terminex, which I love my job now. But when I was in Ohio, I worked with adults with disabilities and various abilities, and it was super huge passion. But it is a trying, and it's nowhere near as trying, I don't think, is being a police officer. I don't have to. There's a lot of stuff that I deal with, but nothing is as life threatening or anything like that. There was no life threatening issues that I dealt with, but it can be trying sometimes. And I remember at the beginning of COVID, kind of tying these two things together. At the beginning of COVID, where everything had shut down, gyms had shut down, I couldn't train. And I was used to training 4 to 5 times a week, sometimes 2 times a day. I was still competing, and it was all gone. And now I was still doing my secret sessions, and hopefully nobody comes, and I don't think there's any backdated legal actions that anybody can take for me to having closed door session. I call it speakeasy jiu-jitsu.
Right.
It's like, hey, everybody park at the Piggly Wiggly and walk over. And so like 4 guys would get together and we'd try and we try and beat the piss out of each other for a couple hours. But at the beginning of COVID, when it all shut down, like I didn't realize how much of a mental release jujitsu was.
Mm-hmm.
And just all the stress of my job and of life and taxes and kids maybe having a bad report card, or just all my wife being on me about not doing the honeydew list, which I don't do because I'm at jujitsu too much. But like all of that, all of that stuff started to compile on me. And I remember my wife came and she had a gym. So she does property management. She had a gym at her office, and it was for the apartments that she had, but it was closed. And she said, "Hey, after work, come over to the apartments. I need you. I need to see you." And so I come over to the apartments, and she hands me a workout. She had like a pair of shorts and shirt and like every towel ready to go. And she's like, "Go in the gym and come out when you're done." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Come out when you're done." And I remember I turned on like UFC 26 and I streamed that to the television, and I watched that, and I was in there for an hour and a half. And I beat the piss out of myself, and it's the best I ever felt. and the whole thing was like a release of just like an exhale, kind of going back to what you said about like being able, what Butch was talking about, being able to get that stuff like where I didn't have to think about anything. It was just me and some weights, or me and the bike, and me and the treadmill, and like just getting that all out of this, and I didn't realize how important it was for me with a job that is nowhere near life and death threatening, to like just have that physical dump of emotions.
Right.
And so kind of the same thing that Butch was talking about is like those guys are going to carry that stuff on. Sometimes it's nice not to think,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's going to be a big part of it.
That's what that to me, and that's exactly right. Jiu-jitsu is that 1.5 hours you're in the gym a night or whatever, and I think about what's going on the mat, that other person, whatever they're trying to do to me, what game plan I'm trying to execute, whatever moves I'm working that week, and that's it. That's your thought process. Then you go home and you start all over again, and you wait till it happens the next day. But yeah, that it's a respite. It really is.
So,
Oh, go ahead, Butch. Go ahead.
No, good. You finished, because I want to ask a different question probably. So go ahead, Gary.
Well, I wanted to lead into one of my favorite things that Dave's a part of, which is Bridgeway Academy. And I wanted to tie into that. But like I said, the last job that I had, I was working with adults with various abilities. And I was a program director trying to do job placement stuff, getting people in jobs. And it honestly, one of the greatest, I was at that job for 17 years.
Wow.
And it was the greatest. Not only did I have a great employer, but the greatest people to work. And I did everything from residential to transportation. And then finally, as a program director, getting people into jobs in the community. And really, it was about community exposure and community inclusion. That was a big part of my job. And it was the most rewarding thing. But after 17 years and after coming to I wanted to be outside. I didn't want to be inside anymore. So it's nice to have a change of environment down here in North Carolina. But I still talk to all my people back home, all the folks that I trained with. And one of the things that actually, like, I was like, oh man, I need to hang with Dave more, is Bridgeway Academy, which is in Columbus. It's a school for kids with autism. And I believe that they go until they're 21. Am I correct?
Yeah.
21 years old. And it gives them the opportunity to learn an environment that is better for them, better suited for them, that maybe a regular public school wouldn't offer. They operate for the most part on donations. I'm not sure how much they get from the government as far as a program, but I know that donations, they're donation funded and driven. And you guys, for I don't know how long it's been going on, but you guys doing the Bridgeway roll-a-thon. It was my favorite event the 3 years that I did it, and I'm thankful that I got to be a part of.
Yeah, it's we're lucky here in Ohio. I'm not sure all the other states, but so they have the autism scholarship. So every kid that goes is funded by the state of Ohio to a certain amount. And I, off the top of my head, I can't remember, it's like $27,000 or $30,000 per kid that they can use for their education to go to these special needs schools. And then the county gives you some funding, and then school districts. So they're funded by all that. But donations, they are a nonprofit school. So donations are a huge part of like all the extras that happen there too. So we started this, and I kind of lose track with COVID because we had a year without it, I think. But the first year I tried to do a 24-hour event. Well, I did a 24-hour event, but my goal was to be on the mats for 24 hours. I was stupid. I dehydrated really bad. It was like July, middle of summer. I did like 64 rounds straight. I got the bends, kind of like I ended up, I go to the bathroom and I go in my bathroom, like splash some water on my face. And I came out and my hands had cramped up and I couldn't turn the doorknob to get out of our bathroom at the gym. They had to pour Gatorade down my throat and eat bananas for about the next 8 hours. It was miserable, but I was like, I got to change this. So the following couple of years, we did the 100 round challenge. So essentially they have, participants have 24 hours to complete 105-minute rounds. And we did that for a couple of years. And then the third year we did a 25 round. You had to roll for 25 gi, roll for 25 no gi, I think. And then it was boxing or kickboxing for 25 minutes. So we kind of did that. You stayed in your little group, and that was fun too. But people begged me to go back to the 100 round challenge, a 24-hour event. So we're going back to it this year. We're going to do it in June 18th as actually our event this year. And I've raised $75,000 total throughout my other events. And this year I'm going to try to get 25 to make it even 100. Just would kind of help my own personal OCD, I think, to get it to 100. It's a big goal, but if we can get 25 this year, I'm going to try to get it to 100 for them. So it's a nice little event, and we'll see how it goes. We do a silent auction with it, and a lot of the companies in the jiu-jitsu community have been fantastic. I mean, they donate stuff. Phalanx is one of our big donators. Origin, they donate stuff to us all the time to raffle off or to have silent auctions or whatever. So we've had a lot of good companies that stepped up and helped us out with that too.
So when you say, like, if I was rolling for 100 rounds, I'm trying to think of some events that were similar, like somebody running laps or something. Is that what you're kind of doing? Like somebody's sponsoring them for so many laps, or how do you set that up money wise?
I kind of leave it up to the individual people. I get an idea beforehand of who wants to do the actual 100 rounds. And I tell them that go get your friends, your family, get some non-jiu-jitsu people, have them sponsor you. Cause I don't want us all hitting up the same people, of course. I was like, get some people to sponsor you. Just like that, kind of like what's it called? Pelotonia. They do the bicycle thing for cancer. I was like, get something like that, have them sponsor you to do 100 rounds. Have them give you $1 a round or something and go from there. And we got some guys who really do raise some big funds, man. It's pretty cool to see that they do it. And it really is. It's with jiu-jitsu guys. You guys know this. It's such a physical thing that they want to see if they can do 100 rounds. Yeah. Like, man, I want to see if I can actually do this. And so they get pretty pumped, and it's a cool event, man. It really is. Gary, I'm glad you've been there too. I know it gets hot in that gym, man. You know, you got the ventilation system across the top. It starts dripping water and everything gets so hot. And I'm just like,
oh no, I remember the last time actually it was the first time that I did it, and it was still the 100 rounds thing. And the first time that I did it, I came in and it looked like the walls were sweating, like the walls. And I stepped on the mat and this is not a testament of cleanliness because it's a beautiful gym and absolute. But I stepped on the mat and it was stepping in puddles.
Yeah.
Like I was walking through puddles of other men, and I was like, I guess I'm at home for the next little bit. And so then we went into it. But honestly, like it made it, knowing what I was doing it for, made it like so much easier. And it really is, like, of all the things that I've done in jiu-jitsu, it's probably the most meaningful because I know it meant something more than jiu-jitsu.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it was nice to marry those two things. Very much so. Like Butch had we had a 5-on-5 competition in Charleston, and it went to, and now I'm having a blank. What did that money go to, Butch?
You know, I don't remember either. So, I think it was suicide prevention. But I'm not.
No, it was suicide prevention program, and so it was the same thing. It was like what we're doing is for more than just jujitsu. Like, not only am I getting to exercise all my own demons, right, but I'm also getting a chance to like help the community and do something for the community. And so it's nice to be able to marry, like, you know, the idea of being a good human with also choking people unconscious.
Right.
So, Dave, what led you to come up with that event? Was it a group effort? Did it something that was just something you thought of, or what brought that upon yourself?
My oldest son is nonverbal autistic, and he goes to Bridgeway. He turns 15 this summer, and he's been at Bridgeway since he was 4, I believe. So it's been something we've been involved with the school often. I know some of the events that they would do and put on. And when I started this, my whole goal was to try to raise $1,000. Like, I can raise $1,000 would be cool, the first year. And I think we raised like 5, and it was awesome. I was like, holy shit, this is actually going really well. I think I'll do this again. And I just, like I said, originally it was the 24-hour. I was going to try to be on the mats a full 24 hours. Like, I just grand planned to roll with everybody that walked in the gym. Yeah, it didn't happen. But we just let the clocks roll. And then after that, I was like, we got to stabilize this. So try to do the 100 rounds, and just came up with it. And it worked, and it got more popular and more popular. So yeah, it came out of wanting to help them because, they've done a lot of work for our family, honestly. They brought Tyler a long way. So kind of wanted to give back something to the school.
So does your son, does he do jujitsu, or is he?
Nah, he's not. He can't physically or mentally. He's on a pretty severe end of the spectrum, really. So he wouldn't be able to do jiu-jitsu. My younger two do, but my oldest can't.
I think, and Gary and I had kind of talked about this in another conversation, but I did not know, for somebody that doesn't have a child with autism or that's around with anybody with autism, I did not know. You hear the term spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really know. I didn't know what that meant. The meaning that there's so many different levels, right?
Yeah.
For example, we have several kids at our gym that have autism, and they are like, there's some that's there's a little girl that, I mean, she's great, but she screams when people touch her. It kind of freaks people out, right? Like, and then we have to tell them, like, hey, like, that's just what she does. She's okay. She's actually having fun. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like, they think they're killing her. She's like, oh, like, but like, I did not know, right? And for some, jujitsu is a huge part of their development. It really is. Like,
sure.
And it's not for everybody. That's the other thing. So when I have parents that contact me because they've heard, through the grapevine that, hey, I've heard some kids did well, what do you think? I'm just honest with them. I was like, we're not an expert,
Yeah.
we're learning just with you guys. So you can try, let's see what happens. We can be as patient as you want us to be, and vice versa. But it has been great for a lot of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then some, just, it's not their thing. There's some, I guess some autism people don't want to be touched, right? That's the other thing. It's not the greatest thing. But, and then speaking earlier, Stefan Bonner's son has autism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing. I'm lucky to be around such a beautiful kid where I can learn things, right? Like, and my kid's can learn. He's, a great kid, but it's just, everybody's got their own thing, but it's a beautiful thing. I think it's awesome that we're in another thing where we can help people. And even if it's like your son's not doing jiu-jitsu, but the fact that jiu-jitsu still helps your son,
sure,
I think it's pretty awesome, right? Like, I just, it's not everybody that's in a position like we are to like help other people and to learn. That's the other thing. Like, I need to learn. I need to be educated. I need to know these things, right? And then in turn, I can help other people that say other things, that don't know or whatever. I think it's a beautiful thing, and it's a great thing you do. Like, I'll be honest, all these years I saw your event. I didn't know what it's for. I know that Gary attended, right? Because I'm here. So obviously it's not a thing that's easy to go to, but what a great concept, and I don't know, just a great thing that you're doing in general, right? And hopefully this podcast in general, like, I think that's the thing. Like, I've always prided myself on, like, we have a gym and it's great. I love my gym. But like, I want to be a pillar of the community, meaning like I want to do something more. Right?
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is. I still like every day I struggle with that because I'm sure I do some stuff, right? People are happy, but I mean, I don't feel like it should ever stop, right?
Mhm.
Rather it's like I see some gyms do toys for tots, some gyms do
Mhm.
things for animals, some like I think we're in a position, right? We have a reach and we have an opportunity to do things through jiu-jitsu and MMA and all this other stuff, and we should use that position. So I think a lot of things that you're saying maybe will give some people some ideals like, hey man, maybe reach out if there's something true and dear to your heart. Here's a thing that you could do. Like,
Sure.
because and that's a good, I'm glad you kind of mentioned the 24-hour roll-a-thon too, because I would read things about it. I've never done it at our gym, but one of the guys that used to come to the gym, his name was James, but he was an ex-military guy, and he'd always bring that one up. Like, we needed a 24-hour marathon for, suicide prevention for vets and stuff like that. And I was like, didn't pull the trigger on that because I'm like, I cannot roll for 24 hours. So maybe we need to think about something else. So like, but knowing there's a happy compromise of the 100 rounds, that kind of makes more sense. It's just equally as brutal,
Sure.
but it could be done, right? Like I argue, we not argue, but I always say they're saying like, it's like a Spartan race or Tough Mudder. You do them because they're difficult. You're not
Sure.
doing that because you just want to run and do some opposite. Like, you're doing it because you might, like, getting shocked surely can't be fun, right? But I'm doing it because there's an opportunity. Like, I would roll 100 rounds because there's an opportunity I might not make it. There might be, my hands might get stuck like yours. I might get dehydrated, but I'm gonna give it all I got, and I've got a purpose that maybe inside my mind I'm like, hey man, I'm doing it for the kids. I've got to do it. It's making me dig deeper, and I think that's
Right.
beautiful. I think that's a cool ideal. And props to you guys for doing a lot of stuff with the community. I think that's awesome. I mean, it's something that's kind of overlooked, but it's something too, man. As a gym, man, use your platform for what we got.
Sure.
We got a little bit of stuff, man. You guys are doing a great job.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Like you said, we do like everybody else does. We do the toys for tots, and certain things will pop up. Certain members of our gym, something will happen, and we all try. We got a great facility, great environment, I should say, and people step up, when something happens. And like, we had a guy you just mentioned about Stefan Bonner's house fire. One of my students, his apartment caught on fire, and they lost about everything. And within a day, he had all brand new rash guards, all brand new shorts, all brand new gis for him and his kid and everything else. And it's like, I didn't say nothing at first. I wasn't one like, hey, we should donate to him. All of a sudden everybody's like, hey, Ben, we got you covered, So it also, with the gyms we have, you build that community in your gym too. And it makes people want to help others, I think.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome stuff, man. I think hopefully, all in all, like, this whole podcast, the point is, right, obviously I want to get to know you, but like, you really give us, like, I personally, some things to think of, like, hopefully some new events that I can do. I think, again, my goal since I started a gym was to be like a pillar of the community, and you're already out there doing that, making a big name for yourself. I think, and I don't mean that in a weird way. I mean, you're doing the things that make us, other people that want to do stuff, like, inspired. So,
Sure.
I think that's awesome. And I'm glad that, looking at some Gary's posts way back when you did that, I mean, and that's a good point. Like, Gary, how was, when you did that, for example, how was that? Did you make all 100 rounds? Were you able to complete that, or how did that go?
Yeah. So I was able to do it. I think I did it for 3 years. Here's what I can tell you. As a purple belt, this is where I found out that as a purple belt walking into a gym that's not yours, that you get everybody's best round.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of white and blue belts that were hanging out over there. We're like, we'll take it easy with each other on this round. And then that guy that's from out of town, we're going to beat the piss out of him. So there was that. I was not anybody's rest round. Everybody took it to me on their rest. But honestly, like, it did a couple things for me. One, I felt grateful that I had the opportunity to, like, help out Dave and Bridgeway and other things, but also inspired me. And this was my takeaway, was like, how can we do something not only to help people with various abilities, but like, how can we help people with various abilities help the community? And so, like, I actually took that back to my job, and I was like, I seen what Dave was doing, and I was like, I want to turn this around and be like, have my people give back. So in Logan, Ohio, where I was a program director, and we had people where we was doing job, like I said, job placement, life skills training, and stuff like that. I got in contact with the school, the school. Now I can't think. The Department of Education in Logan, and I said, hey, we want to be able. Do you have any fundraisers that you guys do? We want to be able to give to that somehow. And they said, well, we have backpack gives and stuff like that, but like any money or whatever is helpful. And so I went back and I talked to my people in my program, and I had a program of like 15-ish, maybe 20-ish people. And I said, guys, we're going to go ahead and give back to the community. Everybody looks at us as somebody who just receives from the community. Let's try and give back. And so we came up with the idea of having a bake sale, and having the bake sale, we'll take that money and we will put backpacks together for kids going into. And the first year we did it, we put together 50 backpacks fully, like all loaded with pencils, pens, erasers, paper, everything they needed for that school year. The second year we did it, we did over 100. And it was our small little group of 50 people making Rice Krispie treats and selling them at Walmart. And we made enough money together to put together 150 backpacks for kids going in what is a low income area. And so the whole point is like, the folks that I work with, they have something to give back to our community. I was lucky enough that my wife, I had a lot of good connections, and my wife, she was a property manager at a low income housing place, and she would do fun Fridays at her apartments during the summer. And so I was like, hey, my ladies can come and volunteer, and she's got sprinklers set up for the kids to run to, and they would get a jump house. And so a couple of my ladies would come down, and they would pop popcorn, and they would make a cotton candy. And so we would hand it out to the kids, but it was a way of being involved in the community and not just being, and I think that's the big thing is that we look at folks with, whatever the disability is, somebody who's relying on us to help. And what I really want is people to focus as that we haven't found out how they can be useful for our community, or we haven't given them the opportunity to be useful, because we look at them in a manner that like, well, they need us instead of us needing them. And I think that's the big thing for me is like, we need them as much as they need us. And this is 17 years of working with adults with various abilities that kind of led me into that. But I think we, regardless, I think we see people and we take a visual snapshot and say, this is what this is.
Mm-hmm.
The reading the book, don't read the book by its cover kind of idea. And there's so much more to give. There's so much more opportunity there. And it's just, have you allowed a person to exploit their opportunity? And I don't know. I may be speaking out of turn, and he may beat the shit out of me because he's so good now. But like, I remember, we have a lot of shared friends, me and Dave do. Brad Schneider, who is training with Daisy Fresh. He's doing like a European tour right now, but like he is blowing up as far as jiu-jitsu. If you go on BJJ Fanatics, he's got a whole crucifix tutorial. But I remember him being like, me and him started the same academy, and I just remember him being this weird, lanky, tall guy, and I remember thinking after he had left, because he had gotten fairly decent when he was training with me, and then he had moved to Columbus. He started training under BJ Nelson, who's also, speaking of military guys and people that I love, BJ Nelson. But he'd started training up there with BJ, and I thought, I still had the impression that I had about the tall, lanky kid that was kind of awkward, in Athens, because he was going to High University at the time. And then I trained with him again, and I was like, holy cow, he beat the living piss out of me. And it was that snapshot that I'd still had, my preconceived notions that I'd still had from 2 or 3 years before and thinking that he was going to be that same guy. And now he's world champion level competitor.
Yeah, good.
And you got to be careful how you make your snapshots on people. You can't be careful. There's a 165-pound dude named Dave Freetage that's going to wreck you.
I'm old now.
We are old now. We are old.
You know, it's going back to the 100 rounds too, is I learned I have a guy in my gym who's a trainer, and he trained professional athletes. So I went to him like, man, how do I do this? Because the first year I can talk about, I tried to just do 24 hours. Just, I'm not going to leave the mats. I'll take some water in now and then. That didn't work. So then the second year we came with the actual 100 rounds, and we wrote out an actual plan. It's like, you're going to do 10 rounds. You're going to take a break. You're going to eat. I'm like, eat? He's like, yes, you're going to eat. This is like a marathon, man. You got to eat. So we got a hydration schedule, food schedule. Then you're going to do 15 rounds. And you're going to take a couple hours off. And we did this whole thing, man. And I finished at midnight, I think, the first year. And then it's 8 hours total of rolling. And the thing is, like you mentioned about being the purple belt, it's like when you're the black belt, the white belts are like, they're going to shoot their shot, man. They're coming at me, you know. But it's like the blues, I can kind of threaten almost, like, you go hard, you're going to pay for this come next week. So I'd had to like calm some of them down, man. But yeah, I had to stick to that schedule, the food, the hydration, all that stuff. And I also learned I had to bring multiple gis and rash guards because you sweat so much. It's like you rub your back raw. So I brought multiple gis, rash guards, everything. So yeah, it's like there's a whole like background to it, man. I was washing clothes for a week. Yeah, Brad's a stud. I know Brad well. Brad's a stud.
Man. Well, and you got some studs that are trying to make some MMA moves, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a huge MMA program, and that's kind of purposeful. We always have some guys that want to fight, and of course we'll help them. We have an MMA class, but I keep the MMA class small on purpose. I don't always like the element that brings into the gym. So I'm a fighter, but I'm a martial artist first and foremost. And I like the martial arts aspect of it, you know, so the jiu-jitsu and the Muay Thai is the focus. But the guys want to fight, of course, will help them. I only have a handful, but yeah, I mean, Josiah Harrell right now, he's 5-0 as a pro. He's undefeated as an amateur. He's a monster. His jiu-jitsu game is monster. His wrestling's a monster. His striking's getting to be unbelievable. You know, my other pros right now is Jake Miller, active pro is Jake Miller. He's a stud himself. He's a jiu-jitsu 2-stripe purple belt. Michael Arrieta turned pro, but he isn't really fighting. Him and his wife have had 2 kids. He's got a new job, you know, working for the county sheriff's office. So it's like he's kind of in daddy mode, new job mode right now. But I mean, he's a 3-stripe brown with me, and his jiu-jitsu game is top level. I mean, dude's a stud. So yeah,
he's a nightmare. Actually, Michael, who was who I was thinking about, and then also you had the last time I was up there was a brown belt that I guess he fought at 185, but when I seen him, he was like 210 pounds. He was not 185.
Yeah, he quit.
No, don't say that. Yeah. No, it happens.
I tell people, it's like that whole thing about people quitting at blue belt is true. It's like you've achieved that goal. It takes so long. It's so hard. But the other place you have people quit often is brown. It's like they get that far, and it's like, I don't know if it's some type of, you know, imposter syndrome or what, but I've had a number of people who've got the brown and then just been like, that's it. Now, some of it's been physical for people. It's like neck injuries. They can't continue. They spent, 8 or 10 years in the game, and that's it. They can't do it anymore. So I've lost a couple of browns due to physical stuff. And then life just gets in the way. If they start in their, early 20s, by the time they're in early 30s, it's family time, and they slow down, and that happens. And, but I've lost not a number, but small handful of browns over the years. So I always tell them it's like that blue belt disappearing act, and then got to be careful of brown. But I think some of that's physical too.
Yeah. But, and then like you were saying, Michael, like he was always one of those guys. Is he teaching over there now?
Yeah. Michael teaches, he helps with the adult classes. Him and Tim run a couple of my adult sections. He runs a whole kids section on his own. One of our kids groups he runs. I have to break the kids down in age groups. So he runs one of the age groups on his own. Him and Avery, who's another one of my brown belts, who's been with me. He used to fight MMA too, but he kind of got out of the MMA scene. Like I said, I'm not a huge MMA fan. I'll watch it on TV now and then. I'll train the guys that really want to do it, but I definitely wouldn't want to have like an MMA gym.
No,
So
that's a whole conversation of itself. I'm like-minded, right? Like it's you hit the nail on the head, and like we don't have to expand upon it, but it brings a different element to the gym, and that it's hard for quote unquote normal people to survive in that environment, right? You know, it's that's a whole issue of itself. And you know, it's funny because if you're a fighter, you don't even know what we're talking about.
No.
because you have one goal in mind, and that's great. That's what you should do. But it's like, it's just different. You know, it's yeah, I'm with you. And people don't understand. I think we actually have the same thing. I have a couple guys that fight, and we help them as much as we can. But I just want to keep it at a couple, because once it gets beyond that, the gym changes, but it's also like the time commitment as a trainer, as a coach, that people don't understand either, because a true fighter really needs all of your time. And really, I'm running a gym, right? Like, you know, I mean, I can't give you all my time, and that's not fair to you either. But again, another whole conversation, right? Like, you know, which I think is a wise thing to do. I think that's the other thing where people make a lot of mistakes, right? Is they want to do it all. When we're talking about somebody that opens a gym, and that's the part that you need to look at. You need to look at what's your bottom line. And maybe if that's your true passion, maybe that is the place to go. But if it's not, the two don't mix very well. Having fighters and normal people,
right?
It's very, very, very hard to do. Even with the nicest guys. Like the guys that fight for us are the nicest, best humans you could have, and it still doesn't mix well. You know, man, it's just what it is, you know.
Well, it's even hard to have heavy competition minded guys training around guys who are just hobbyists. Like even that is an issue sometimes, because when you're getting ready for pans, you can't be too worried about John, who's got to go to his accounting job on Monday. You know, like I'm getting ready to go. If I'm getting ready to go to World Masters or whatever it is, I've got to train in a way that is getting me ready for those guys, not for, you know, Tim, who's teaching.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand what we're talking about. And again, I don't want to get all down it, but it's the truth, right? I thought about that today when I was rolling in an open mat. There was a couple of times that it wasn't on purpose, but I felt like I went harder with a couple guys. It just happened. But same thing. I was like, man, I got to dial it back, right? These are like just normal people. Yeah, I can't choke them super hard, you know, because there's some moves that you actually have to go kind of hard to get them, right? And there's a couple of moves I was working on, and today is like, to get them, I felt bad after I looked at the person's body all contorted, and I was like, well, that's not cool. Like, this guy doesn't give a shit. Like, nor am I getting ready for anything. Like, and I literally had to change my mindset. You know, I was like, okay, well, like that was a bad set of moves to pick. I need to go back with some more gentle ones, you know, like, but again, in my mind, you know, there's a couple of, I forget what they were. They're chokes and stuff. Those, anyway, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, like, Dave, man, I appreciate that. Like, I think I personally learned a lot. We had another similar talk with Mike Stump and Jason Campbell in Parkersburg, West Virginia. Both police officers, do some stuff. I feel like ours is a little bit more in depth this time, Gary. I don't know if you agree. Not that either. I'm not comparing the two conversations, but I think I learned a little bit more today. And you know, and again, I think the other thing that I'm super impressed about is just, you know, hearing about the little charity role that you guys do, or the bigger charity role that you guys do, and learning from that. And hopefully, you know, my goal with doing all these things is to make people think and give them ideals, you know. So, you know, hopefully somebody reads something or listens to this, and then they're like, hey man, like that's something we could do. And then if that happens, all three of us succeeded, right? It's just to spread the love, spread the joy, spread the help of jiu-jitsu, MMA, whatever it is. And Dave, you're a light, you know, that I think is important. You know, I'm glad that I finally got to talk to you last couple of weeks. I mean, I think we've been friends on Facebook. We're the kind of friends that don't talk. We just look at each other for like a number of years. Really, I think we've probably been friends on Facebook somehow for like 20 years, but this is the first time, the 2 weekends in a row or 3 weekends in a row, that we've actually talked, which I'm thankful for. Honestly, this is the point. I mean, thank you for all you do. And, just thank you for being awesome and teaching me some stuff. I appreciate that.
Hey, thank you guys. I'm originally from West Virginia, so I appreciate you giving back down there too.
All right. Where are you from in West Virginia?
I was born in Morgantown, but I lived in Grafton until I was 9.
Ah, awesome.
And then we moved to Columbus.
Ironically, I'm from Cleveland and I just live in West Virginia. So, it's kind of very odd, but I do know all those places. Those are great places. And there's some great gyms now in Morgantown, Bridgeport, Grafton, Fairmont. Which is amazing. That's the thing. West Virginia is always, this is not a slight on West Virginia, but they're usually 5 to 10 years behind everything. Truly are. I remember, like, no joke, like, this is just a funny story, but remember when we used to like roll your pants? What they called it, pegging, which I think of pegging as a sexual act, but like, I'm talking about, like, you roll your, like,
that
shit was done and gone in Cleveland, and I came here and like 5 years they're just now getting into it, and I was like, what's wrong with you people? Like, this is over, like, we're not doing that no more, or like, anyway. But now, like, which is one of the reasons, I had a good jiu-jitsu gym, because there was no other ones for millions of years, but now they're everywhere, which is, that's the point, which is beautiful. That was the whole point of all this stuff, is to make jiu-jitsu grow in West Virginia. And I'm sure the same for you. So, I feel I'm lucky to be part of it. And thanks for all your time, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Sure thing. Good talking to you guys.
Well, thanks. And Dave, I just kind of want to echo everything that Butch said. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I always looked at you as like one of my mentors as far as like who I wanted to be as I went through jiu-jitsu. Not unlike Butch. You and Butch were both like two guys that I admire a lot. And I'm gonna stop kissing ass. But I really appreciate you've done a lot for me as far as like education, as far as like what kind of person to be in, while doing jiu-jitsu, but also you've taught me, I was able to have that small group private with you, and just like I learned who I wanted to be watching you. So I appreciate you a lot. Not, and I think it was probably an even trade that Ohio got you and that West Virginia got Butch.
There you go.
It was a good even trade.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you guys. All right. Well, take care, guys, and we'll be back soon. Take it easy.
All right. See you guys.